My number one tip for any event organizers is get together an ambassador group, influencers, even if it's 5 to 10 people. It doesn't have to be very many, but they need to have a strong influence in whatever community you're trying to reach.
Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsey interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Listen as they focus on the stories, both challenges and wins, that military entrepreneurs have faced in growing their businesses.
Welcome to another episode of Drop and Give Me 20. This is season 2, and I'm so excited today. I'm excited for all of my guests. I say that every time. You guys know that. But today we are talking about how to launch an event. As you guys know, in the military community, when we're running businesses virtually, it is very hard to run an event that is either virtual or in person, especially as we are connecting with each other online. So today, my two guests are Michele Bradfield from Independent and Curtez from the Military Influencer Conference, which both have been successful events. Michele has years of experience in her event with the Military Spouse Wellness Summit, and Curtez had an amazing event for the first time this past time. Of course, I was not able to go, but I saw it. Curtez, how did that event go?
From what everybody's saying, the event went fantastic. It exceeded my personal expectations. And at the same time, we were able to deliver exactly what the guests wanted, the opportunities to network and connect and take this virtual aspect of our businesses and put it in front and center in your face.
And then, Michele, your event is 100% virtual. No one meets in person, right?
Correct. And we did that because we heard a lot of feedback that it was really hard for people to travel, get childcare, miss work. So we created an online event, and we've had thousands be able to join all over the country because it is online.
So your event is online in a manner where it's not live. People sign up and then the information is delivered to their email once they sign up, like every day. But then there's an element that's included where you guys have a forum, like a Facebook group where you communicate that.
Yes, it's a specific event week. So for 7 days, we're all together in a private Facebook group, talking, collaborating in there. But people can listen to the actual speakers on their own time while they're doing dishes, on a walk, in the car, and it works out really good.
So I have so many questions. The first one I want to talk about are speakers. So Curtez, how many speakers did you guys end up having at the Military Influencer Conference?
Speakers. So I think when everything ended up, we had a total of 32 speakers and panelists. And from a logistics standpoint, it was a nightmare. One, with this being my inaugural event, you don't understand really what it takes to coordinate that many different personalities. But I brought Laura on board to assist me, and she was a major asset that helped me to manage, coordinate, and make sure that we had proper placement for everyone involved.
What about you, Michele? How many speakers do you guys usually have?
We work with 10 speakers every year.
And what is your advice on that? Like Curtez said, is it a scheduling difficult?
It is, but I think a lot of people think events, you just kind of jump in, especially because you see them and they look so easy. So you think, oh, how hard can it be? But these things take months and months and months to plan. Yeah. So even with an online event, we're working with speakers at least a year in advance before we even air the actual event.
I'm writing all this down because this is like so helpful for us to hear. Curtez, what is your feedback on that? Is about 12 months ahead?
So yes, I've never done a virtual event, so that's very interesting to hear Michele say that. But we started planning the Military Influencer Conference about 14 months out. I had solidified my keynote speakers around month 11, and everything else kind of fell in place after that. But she touched on planning. Planning is critical. Planning is important. You really need to take the time to systematically lay out the time frame that you have available. One challenge that I see for a lot of other event planners is that they try to throw something together and they're operating within a 120-day window. Trust me, that's just not enough time. But what we did is we laid out the entire year. We started a backwards plan and systematically put every asset in play so that we could deliver when it came time for us to execute on the conference.
At what point in the planning phase do you guys look for sponsors?
Oh, I'm going to say beforehand. So before I even thought of the idea of doing this conference, I needed to figure out how I was going to pay for it. So initially it was a bootstrapped adventure where essentially I put up the money and I was hoping for sponsors to come out of it. But once we made our announcement, sponsors really came on board quite rapidly. And that happened typically between the 10 and 12-month point for us, that we had our major top 2 sponsors already picked out and identified.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would add that you really need to be approaching them at least 12 months out because they do their budgets early. And they usually have people or causes in mind that they already want to support. So you want to get in front of them before they've actually finalized that budget.
Talk to me about what other things that we may not see, but that occur, Michele, when you're hosting an event. What has been a learning lesson for you?
I think it all goes back to that planning. It just takes way more time than you think that it would, especially in your marketing. I think one thing that is really helpful is to do a lot of your stuff up front, automate it, get your graphics done, write out all of your drip campaigns for emails and all that stuff in advance, because the last thing you want to do is be piecing that stuff together as you're trying to do the event. And that kind of stuff takes a lot of time, especially if you're testing it, because things are going to go wrong. And the last thing you want to do is send out crummy material, because that reflects on the event, and people, you want them to have a good impression before they even arrive.
Right. What about you, Curtez? Do you have any things that you would do next time a little different than the first time?
Yeah, so now we're in the early planning process for our 2018 event. One, just staying true to my own individual plan. Whatever we lay out, I'm staying true to that. I'm not going to allow myself to be sidetracked by demands from sponsors. Sponsors are a great thing. You need them, but they also can be extremely demanding. You have to stay true to what you're willing to give them, with some minor adjustments to the left and the right, but stay true to what your offerings are so that it keeps your conference on track and it's really the event that you want to do, and it doesn't turn into a pitch fest for sponsors to showcase their products or services.
Oh, I imagine that's really hard too, because they're sponsoring it. They probably want an element of business from it, or, you know, signups or services or new customers or new clients. So I imagine that that's really hard. I would love to ask you both. We didn't talk about this, so sorry to throw a softball your way. Talk to me about the influencer/affiliate portion of an event. Like, how did you guys, well, first, do you guys have, you know, an influencer or affiliate program for your event? So Michele, I'll let you kind of tackle that first, and then Curtez, we can go to you.
Yeah, when we first started the summit, that was the number one thing that we wanted. And we put together an ambassador group. And basically, we put it out there and let people apply based on their interest in this type of wellness, health and wellness, and military spouse organizations. And it has been huge for us. That is my number one tip for any event organizers, is get together an ambassador group, influencers, even if it's 5 to 10 people. It doesn't have to be very many, but they need to have a strong influence in whatever community you're trying to reach. And get them together and let them be your speaker, your sound system to help spread the word. They're going to have way more pull than actually even paid advertising, in my opinion, because it's word of mouth. If someone recommends that you should attend it and they're friends with you, they're going to do that over an ad that they see, say on Facebook or something. So I definitely say, if you're going to do an event, make an ambassador program a huge priority.
How about you, Curtez?
Very nice.
Did you guys do an affiliate or influencer portion?
So the influencer, we made an attempt, but logistically, we didn't have the things together to properly support it. So that wasn't something that I can say contributed greatly to the organization or even the ticket sales for our event last year. Well, from an influencer perspective, however, since we are calling the influencer conference, one thing that I did when I was putting this process or putting this event together, from a speaker standpoint, I looked for people that had an existing audience, that had a story that somebody else was interested in learning. So when we started to promote the conference, I was able to lean on the speakers to help share the event across their channels. And I think that helped us get to the point that we needed to, just by leveraging other people's influence to speak to their audience with their own unique voices.
So did you guide them by giving them some sample scripts or verbiage that they could use on social media, or did they do that all their own?
So we made an attempt, but it came too late in the process. So literally, that's another great lesson learned. Like Michele talked about, planning and having everything laid out so that all the hiccups are resolved. We didn't do that last year. So now when January rolls around and we start promoting, everything is already going to be laid out so that when we bring on a speaker, they have a speaker packet that's associated with the event so they exactly know how to help us spread the word and what the expectation is going to be for them. That was something we lacked last year.
Michele, how do you tell people no?
As in influencers?
Somebody wants to, spread that out, but maybe, they aren't a good fit from a wellness or health perspective, I should say. Have you had to turn people away, that aren't a good fit?
Luckily, we haven't had to turn anyone away. I think that's a good point, though. You really need to look at who's applying, and that's what we do for our organization. They actually have to go through a process where they answer questions for us and apply. If they're not a good fit, then I think we would just say thank you, but no thanks. Luckily, we haven't had to do that.
What about you, Curtez? Any experience with working with people or either turning people away or maybe not continuing, because that happens. It's business.
Mm-hmm.
Just business.
It is. And that was a mistake of mine. I kind of treated this event as a hobby instead of a business. And that was something I learned as I was going. But saying no, my problem, I said too many yeses last year at a cost for me and also the Military Influencer Conference. So we gave away a bunch of free tickets as an example. People, quite naturally, when you get something for free, they don't value it and they didn't show up. So that was a burden on me because I said too many yeses. But from the no standpoint, one thing I also learned about our community, it's extremely close, and you have to be careful of how you phrase no, because yes, I'm sorry, it's a business, but people's feelings get involved and it kind of tarnishes the whole relationship. So when it comes to saying no, to prevent me actually having to say it face to face, what I'm going to do is make sure that there's practices in place so that there's an application where a committee actually reviews it before we say yes to a speaker. So if they don't make it past the committee, there's no reason for me to have to turn my back on someone after the fact. They know up front where they stand and we move forward without the feelings getting involved in a relationship.
Perfect.
Hopefully.
I love it. Yeah, you guys sound like you both have it together, and that's why I wanted you guys to come on to, share that with anybody that's like, oh, I'm going to create an event and it's going to be in 2 months, and like, whoa, hold on. What other recommendations or tips do you guys have for us as we look at launching an event?
So the budget. Events are expensive. So, I operate on a profit first mentality or mindset. There's actually a book out there. So when you establish something, keep in mind up front, what do you want from this? Is it self-promotion or is it to actually pay yourself in some way, shape, or form? So when I laid out my budget for last year, I made sure that I stayed true to that. Even though there were some problems and hiccups with food and beverages and things like that, you have to have a budget. You have to know what's going to cost you. You have to frame it so you can chase sponsors to support that. If not, you're going to overpromise and underdeliver to your attendees at the event.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Michele? How's budgeting come into play for you guys? Because Michele's organization is a nonprofit, so it looks a little different from that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, our event is a little bit unique because it is online. We don't have to worry about travel, accommodations, food, anything like that, but we do have to look at our marketing budget and our time. It takes a ton of time. We have a team of 5 working on this event behind the scenes, and like I said, it takes us a full 12 years to put on this online 5-day event, and each of us is putting in significant time. So we definitely have to factor that in when we're reaching out to sponsors, and we've had to increase our sponsorships because when we started out, it was kind of the same thing. Like, this is just going to be fun. It's something we want to do. Hopefully we'll make a little bit of money in it, but we didn't factor into the time at all. So you have to look at all areas before you start the event. If you're not going to be able to pay yourself, it might not be worth your time.
So
Exactly.
I'm giggling because it probably felt like 12 years, but I think you meant 12 months.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it does feel like 12 years, but months, yes.
I want to hear when the next Military Spouse Wellness Summit is, and what are you looking for? Are you still looking for sponsors at this point when this releases in February, or is that window closed at this point?
The window is closed for sponsorships right now. We are actually just in the process of selling tickets. Our event is March 5th, And we're doing a 50% off ticket price until the end of January. After that, it's a full price ticket. So if anyone's interested, definitely hop on that opportunity now.
And where can we go to purchase our tickets?
Go to in-dependent.org and /wellness summit.
And what about you, Curtez? When is the next Military Influencer Conference?
So our next event will be from the 23rd through the 25th of September. It's going to be in Orlando, Florida. While tickets are available right now, we're really not doing anything until after the new year. I expect that we'll start promoting the event at the end of January. The event will once again be sponsored by USAA. Also, our other current sponsor so far this year is Military by Owner. We're talking to a host of others, and we're looking at having another successful event. I'm digging for keynotes, so I'm handpicking my keynotes. The rest of the speakers will have an open committee where they can submit an application, and we'll let that run until the end of March.
And so it's a 2-day event this year?
So it's going to be actually 3. So essentially what we're looking at doing is having kind of like a family day. We want to make this event as friendly as possible for families. So we're exploring the option of having the hotel host childcare, just so we can truly make this an event where we can bring together the military community. And when I say that, I'm talking about the veteran community, the military spouse community, the nonprofit community, just bring us all together so we can talk, collaborate, and learn how to grow and expand our businesses or whatever type of influencer opportunities that we have available for us also.
Excellent. Michele, your event is open to all military, or?
It's open to all military spouses, but that includes active and retired. And then we're also opening it up to first responder families this year as well. And we include girlfriends in there too, because we think that they sacrifice just as much as spouses.
Yeah, the more exposure they can get early on, the better, right? Well, I want to thank you both again for coming on the Drop and Give Me 20 podcast and making season 2 more helpful for our listeners. I hope that you guys have heard some tips from them. Michele is well-versed in hosting that virtual event. Curtez has had an amazing first run at the first one. I've heard awesome things about it, Curtez. You know this community is tight, and I've only heard good things about it. So I'm so glad that you both were able to come on. So to get your tickets, you want to go to, for Independent Military Spouse Wellness Summit, you want to go to in-dependent.org. And then, Curtez, what was your website for the Military Influencer Conference in Orlando?
So literally, it's militaryinfluencer.com. The new site is being built and everything is redirecting to our old website right now, but
Okay.
militaryinfluencer.com.
I can't believe that was available. Like that no one
Yeah.
grabbed that URL, like of all the URLs to grab. Good for you. Well, thank you guys again. And I'm so excited to share this out. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.